It always feels good when we get started. Hello, everybody. I have the fabulous Bethany Turner with me today, and I'm so excited to have her on my show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you. I really am. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We've been talking about this, so
Yes,
I'm
I
thrilled.
know. I know. And you got such an extensive backlist. I will talk about whatever you want to talk about. I want this to be like such a fruitful experience for you and of course for the
Okay.
readers. By the way, this audience, they always have great questions, by the way.
Awesome.
So I have
Bring
some
it
things
on.
prepared, but I also have a slideshow of all of your incredible works. I realized as I was looking, there's quite a few things that I didn't know about. So you're going to have to take us on a journey through your life as a writer.
Wow. This is intense, and I am here for it. This is amazing.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Well, I figure, you know what? Let's just start at the beginning. When did you know you wanted to become an author?
When I became one. And
At that moment.
at that moment. Yeah, I was not one of the I loved to read when I was younger. I was not a writer growing up, and then I was actually in banking for like 13 years, and which I'm not good at math. How did this happen? It's just one of those things.
I love it.
And but it's like I was the person. I would proofread everyone's memos, and I would be responsible for the company-wide disbursement of things. And so it's like, did I have some writing skills? Okay, maybe. But fiction, no, wasn't even a thing. And then as part of said bank, I was actually a vice president and overseeing the operations side of our second merger within like 2 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I burned out. I burned out hard. And I was like 34, something like that, 33.
Okay.
And like had young kids at home, youngish, single digits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh, uh-huh. And so and I was a theater major in college, so I'd always done theater and stuff, and like community theater had been like my fun release. There
Yeah.
was no time for that. My life had no time for that anymore.
Yeah.
So I literally just started. I actually just I wrote the fictional memoirs of this fictional celebrity, and I don't know what it just was a thing. And before I knew it, I had like 3 books, and
Oh my gosh.
and like literally, I'm not exaggerating when I say it was like in the midst of all that I'm like, I think I want to be an author. I did not know till that point. I really didn't. So
I love it. I love it. I love a good pivot. I love that when people can just, I mean, it sounds like you are the queen of the pivot. That's
I've
I
had to be, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, along with that, tell us about your journey to publishing your first book.
Sure. So, and I look at it in a couple different phases of my career, because those first 3 that I wrote, I self-published those. And I
Oh,
always say that with a little bit of, I don't know, reverence for those who self-publish now, because again, this was 12 years ago or something like that.
mm,
Self-publishing was not what it has become.
mm.
Um, then it was very much, it was like, oh, apparently you can make a book, and hey, let's find out what we're doing. And so it was very much just like, hey, I think this would be fun to have these things that I could read and share with my friends. Um, so, so there's kind of that story of, so my first book was that of like, I had a couple friends who were reading as I wrote, and then it was like, this is not claiming that it's a great American novel, but it was like, that's worth, letting people read a couple, So that was the decision to do that. And it was chaos, but it was fun, but actually managed to find a few readers, and a few. And I'm not being humble when I say. And
Oh.
and so, yeah, but in the course of that, then I wrote what went on to be my first traditionally published book. And I traditionally published that one because I knew it deserved better than I was able to give it.
Mm, mm.
So again, and it's not because self-publishing wasn't enough. It was me, self-publishing was not enough. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
A so then I sought, publication for that one, and I guess the rest is sort of history on that.
I love it. Anything that ends with, "And the rest is history." I love it so much. I love it. So, what you don't have to have a hot take on this, by the way, but what do you think about the landscaping of publishing now versus when you started?
Hmm. I think it's such a mixed bag, and I will have a hot take on anything you throw at me, just FYI. So,
I don't wanna put you on the spot and be like, "Well, I don't know."
nah, bring it. Um, I think it is such a mixed bag because, I mean, there are so many incredible independently published authors that we know. I mean, publishing is so ridiculously competitive and high stakes and getting more and more so. And, there are so many brilliant storytellers and brilliant stories that would never be read if not for, the landscape changing as it has to where people can have more options to publish.
Yeah.
Having said that, I I don't have a lot of patience for the people who phone it in because they
Mm,
can,
sure,
or
sure.
it's like I think, it's I love that there are so many wonderful things out there now, and I also hate that anything can be out there. And and I know that's, freedom, go at it, do what you want to do.
Right,
But
right.
as a reader, I'm just like, some of these books should not be published. Let's just say it like it is.
When I first looked at Kindle Unlimited, I was like, "Look at all these books," and then I was like, "Wait, they're not all created equal."
No, they are not. They are not. And it is definitely worth seeking out the needles in
Yeah,
the haystacks. I mean,
sure.
there's great stuff. And
Mhm.
and yeah, but I think also as a result, there's a lot of oh, this is easy and anybody can do it.
Sure, sure.
And
Yeah.
to do it, I just don't believe anything worth doing well is easy.
This is very true.
Mhm. But
Well
having said that, sure, go publish your book. Whatever. Don't expect me to spend money on it. That's all
said.
I'm saying.
Sure,
So,
gotcha.
yeah.
Is there anyone off the top of your head, an independent author that you really enjoy that you wanna give a shout out this afternoon? Or I know it's different timing
Mm.
for everybody, I always forget that.
Um, wow, one author that I really love, her name is Sarah Monzon, and
That name.
Monzon.
Yes,
Do you
yes.
know the name?
I
Um,
do.
eh, and she is actually with a traditional publisher, but
Okay.
she published, I don't even know how many independent, and every one of them was just higher level than I saw with a
Mhm.
lot of, and she's just such a great storyteller. And it's like, she's one of those, she could tackle it all. Whatever she wants to
Okay.
tackle, it's great.
Oh,
So, yeah, she's one I would definitely recommend for, she writes rom-com, she also writes some historical, but she's just a great storyteller.
I love it. I love it. So this is okay, again, maybe a tricky question, but I think you can more than handle it based on what I know about you. How do you define your writing and or yourself as a writer? Like is it rom-coms or, I definitely know. I've already got a question in the comments about spice. I told you we were going to get that.
You called it. You
I
called it,
called.
my friend.
I called.
That's
Yeah. So yeah,
well,
tell us about what kind of author are you? Would you say, if in a
yeah.
nutshell, your elevator pitch, so to speak?
My elevator pitch, I always go with rom-com.
Okay.
And I think for me that, when I think rom-com, in my head, and I know this is not what everyone else thinks, and there are so many different ways to define it, but for
Sure.
me, I am the rom-coms of the '90s, the Nora Ephron, the
Yes.
Nancy Meyers, the,
Yes.
Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, all of that stuff
Yes.
while you were sleeping,
Oh,
that's my love.
yes.
And I feel like that's what I write. I'm not comparing myself to those, but as far as the style, the
Sure.
yeah, I
Yeah.
because I think too often, romantic comedy is either missing the romance or the comedy.
Mm.
And I think we use the term a little loosely sometimes, but in my mind, it's like rom-com needs to be romantic and it needs to be funny, or it's not rom-com.
Right, right. That's so true. I've definitely experienced some of those where it's one,
Mhm.
but not the other. I'm like, "Where's"
Yeah. Which is like, that's great. That's a great book. It's not rom-com. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So, what do you want your readers to come away from your books thinking or feeling?
I would say some of that varies depending on the book, certainly, but
Sure,
in a general, um, I want you to have there's always something that is happening that we're never really defining on the page.
Mm,
Like if it is a sort of a redemption story or whatever, the word redemption's never going to be in there.
ah,
But I hope that it's a I think laughter is so disarming
yes.
that it has the ability to really make us sort of introspective without realizing it.
Mm,
And so I always feel like there's something there that it's like, okay, if you've experienced anything like this, hopefully it's kind of stirring that up, but
yeah,
we have taken the edge off of it because we're laughing through it as the wonderful tool and weapon and whichever way you want to look at it that
sure.
is.
I
So
love
I think
that.
I think that's that varies. So what that is varies from book to book, but there's also like every book, I really just hope you have a really good time. I during I released one book, well, the publishing date was May 5th of 2020, and travel back with
Oh,
me, if you will. We all know what was
yes.
happening in the
At first
world.
second, I'm like, "Oh."
Oh,
We go to the
yeah,
date. Yes, yes, yes.
exactly,
Oh, sorry,
and
I did
it
not mean to do that. My apologies.
that's
Ignore that for
okay. Hi,
now.
Sarah. Uh,
Through May
um,
5th, 2020, you said.
May 2020, and so it was I really felt at that moment, I felt like, what am I supposed to do? How do I go out there and be like, hey, y'all, let's, because book about two dueling chefs and it's really romantic and they're in the kitchen together on a reality show and
Yeah.
it's like, how do I sell that to people right now when we're worrying about such real things? And the
Yeah.
thing is, so I really, really struggled through that. And I
Mm,
regret that I struggled through that because
mhm.
now I'm just like, oh, we needed to be owning every opportunity we could get to
Sure.
laugh and connect.
Yeah.
And so, I just I do. I hope you have a good time more
Yeah.
than anything else.
That's what we need. That is what we need in
Yeah.
our
It's
lives.
okay to laugh sometimes. It really is.
Yes, and I'm so
Yes.
thankful that you provide that for us. I love it. I love it. And along those lines of your material, things that people are going to find in your books, Christina asked, "How do you not give in to the pressure to write spicy books?" And as I loved your thesis on Instagram when you were talking to me about that, expound on that as you did earlier, if you feel comfortable, because I found that fascinating. Tell us about that.
Sure, sure. So I feel I hate the terms that we use, first of all, and that was one thing I really went into a lot of because it's like when, if to me, spicy, like when I think of food, if we're like, it doesn't have any spice, we're saying it's bland.
Oh, sure, sure,
And I do not want that to be the case, but at the same time, those are the words we use. I
sure.
get that.
Mhm.
Same with clean. It's like, okay, so I would say my books are clean.
Mhm.
At the same time, I hate that terminology as well because I'm not meaning to say that anything else is dirty.
Oh, sure.
So it's like there's so many different things fighting there. But when
Yeah,
it comes right down to it and straight to Christina's question,
yeah.
as far as how I don't give in to the pressure, I truly don't have any desire to write what's considered spicy books. And
Mhm.
it's not because I'm a prude or because I don't think that happens or because I don't know that. I mean, I'd probably sell a lot more copies if I did, in some ways.
Oh, sure.
Um, you know, but to me, it's just that I love I love the nuance. I love I mean, it's like I struggle every time, like, how is each kiss between characters different than anything I've written before?
Fun.
How is that moment and that tension, how is that making the story move forward? How is that changing these characters? It's like, that's intense enough as a writer. So I'm like, I don't wanna mess with any of the other stuff. Like, I have enough challenge. Um,
You're
but
right.
then Also, as I told you, I'm like, well, for one thing, my dad does read all my books, so that is always kind of like will I be embarrassed to have my dad read this?
Yeah, that would make it awkward.
Yeah, like, sometimes that's all it takes of like, "Nope, nothing good."
Yeah, right,
Not gonna happen.
right,
But
right.
also, I have written some overt faith message romances, and, that's really where my following developed. Even so now there may not be faith on the page in the same ways or whatever. I do certainly feel um, I wanna say a loyalty to that audience, not that I mean, almost just I want to honor that, not to say I won't write, something different because they wouldn't like it. It's not that, but it is, I wanna make sure they have a heads up if it's more than they may like, but
Mm,
really it's just I don't have any interest. I think it's all interesting enough. There's enough you can do with, again, like if he's brushing her hair out of her face, or if she's noticing the way he smells. I mean, there's plenty to work with. We don't have to be in the bedroom. We really don't. And so there are plenty of other writers who can write all of that. I've
sure,
got my hands full on
sure,
the outside of
sure,
the bedroom.
sure. Well, it sounds like you're serving your readers well, that this is the expectation, that they're not providing that pressure to you. Have you ever felt that from your publisher or no? No. Oh,
No, I've been really fortunate so far. They I've been with a couple different publishers now at this point, and they know what they're getting when they get me.
yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, I just recently signed with a new agent, which was really exciting, and it yeah,
Oh.
it was very exciting, and like a dream agent situation, and I
Mm,
kind of had this conversation in the beginning of, look, this is what I write, and if people wanted me to write this other stuff, is that going to be a problem?
sure.
And she actually said to me, she's like, of course that wouldn't be a problem. That wouldn't be a Bethany Turner novel. Why would we want that?
Oh, that's perfect.
Like, thank
That's
you. And that's not to say that a Bethany Turner novel is better than anyone else's novel, but it is uniquely mine.
exactly. I think
And
about that for me, my what I think of as music. You have a certain artist that you listen to, you anticipate certain types of music typically. And
yes,
what you if there's comfort in knowing what you're getting, I think.
100%,
It's
100%.
fascinating because you're the 3rd, again, I'm just gonna use the term because that's what we know,
I
the
know.
sweet clean. You're my
Yeah,
3rd sweet clean author that I've had on my channel, and the other 2 that I've spoken with previously have talked about how they do feel the pressure, and they are getting pressured,
really.
unfortunately, by their publishers. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm sorry. One was on my channel and one was, in person. We had
Okay.
a long talking for sorry. People
Yeah.
go look for that online and like, "Where is it?"
Like, there's a
Um
third. Where can I find it?
Where is it? Yeah. No, yeah, that was actually at a Polycon, a conference,
Mm,
and anyway, but so I've heard from other it makes me sad to think that there's authors that are feeling that pressure to do things
yeah.
they're comfortable with.
Yeah. And I think that is, I mean, I'm gonna face it at some point. I'm sure, how long can my streak run? Um,
But
but at the same
there's an audience for that. I
there's
mean,
a
you've got the
there
readers,
is.
so,
Th there is,
you know?
and I just genuinely I'm like, "Okay, I'm not going there," and I really think if it were too much pressure "We can't publish you unless," it's like, "Okay, I think I would lose the joy in it anyway, so I think we're
Mm,
done. That's when it's time to hang it up if that's the
sure.
only option."
Yeah.
So, as of now, I feel very confident in that.
Yeah.
That will not change. My as of now, I should be clear, like, that
Sure.
won't change. How confident I feel in it may falter because 'cause I'm human, but, at the end of the day, those are the facts, and I don't wanna cross those lines for
Sure.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah, Christina has a follow-up comment. I definitely wish there was more clean books available in everyday bookstores. True. Yeah, they
Yeah,
can be hard to find, but thank heavens we have the internet these days so we can order,
indeed,
right?
indeed. But I would also say to that point of ask for them, ask for them, ask for them.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think
That's
all too
brilliant.
often we all, we do go into a store and they don't have what we want, so we go and we order it on Amazon.
Mhm.
And hey, I do it as much as anybody, so I'm not
I've done it. I've
against
done it.
yeah. Yep. But at the same time, it's like, well, let those booksellers know that there's a demand for this and we might start to change the wave a little bit.
We have another good point along with what you've been saying. If the author's not feeling the spice, how would it be any good anyway? Right? Right?
Exactly.
Excellent point. We've got another
Excellent.
great question here. Have you ever thought about writing a holiday book? And if so, what tropes would you have to include?
Ooh, I love that.
That's fun.
I'd never had thought about writing a holiday book until,
Oh,
um, until
oh,
recently because I have, this small town that plays into my last 2 books to come out and my one that comes out next year, and, this Adelaide Springs, Colorado, and it's this, this Colorado mountain town of, like,
mm,
300 people, and how do you not think about A Christmas Story set there?
yeah.
So, honestly, I feel like the town is almost pushing me towards it, um, but and as of what tropes I would have to include in that, um, I honestly don't know. I rarely write to trope, it
Really?
yeah, I the trope is always there.
Sure.
It comes out, and then by the end, by the time I'm promoting a book, I can tell you what the trope is. But, you know, but really,
Yeah.
with the exception of actually Cole and Layla Are Just Friends, which was
Yeah.
my, book that came out this year,
Yes.
um, apart from that one, I've never really written one that is just like because that one was me talking with my editor and after we'd already developed this Adelaide Springs and saying, "Hey, you know what? I've never written a Friends to More. I'd like to do that with Cole and Layla. What do you say?"
Oh, I love
And yeah, so it's a great question. That was a really long way of me saying, "I don't know. I'll have to wait and see."
I think that was well done. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Adelaide Springs. I know a
Sure.
lot of people have read and really enjoyed Cole and Layla Are Just Friends. That was my introduction to you, actually. And I believe that falls on the heels of, well, I mean, how could you not? Because there's so many cameos of Bryn and Sebastian from Bryn and
Yeah.
Sebastian Hate Each Other. If you feel comfortable right now, tell us a little bit more about this series.
Sure, of course. So first thing is it did not start out as a series. Um,
Oh.
it it was not at all well, okay. See, this is a complicated story. How much time do we have? This is important. Uh,
I can't. Well, this is great. I can't wait.
because okay, so the book that is actually coming out next year, which is
Yes.
called
We need to hear about
Wes and Addie Had Their Chance, is
this.
what that one is called.
Oh boy.
And
Oh
so I
boy.
wrote that book about 10 years ago, and no one has wanted to publish it for the last 10 years that I've been trying to pitch it
Yeah.
because Wes, our main character, he's running for president.
Oh!
And everyone has told me, nope, not touching politics with a 10-foot pole. To which I have always said, and is absolutely 100% the truth, this book has nothing to do with politics. Like, seriously, nothing. But isn't there something so just intriguing and compelling about, a man who's in position to have the most powerful
Yes,
job in the world?
right.
Or does he choose love? I mean, hello, we love that story.
Totally.
Uh,
Yes.
so it doesn't have anything to do with politics. So anyway, I'd written that story. Um, no one would touch it. So, um, but I loved it. I loved it. And so what I ended up doing was because Wes and Addie, were from this little Colorado mountain town.
Oh boy.
And I ended up going, well, okay, if I'm never going to get to publish this book, I don't want to waste these supporting characters that I love so
Oh,
much in this town.
stop. I love it.
So I started writing Bryn and Sebastian Hate Each Other. And I took a little thread of Wes and Addie's story, not much, but nothing presidential, but um, in that it was because Wes is kind of like, sort of like, he's politician when he comes back to the small town that he left all these years ago. Well, I used
Oh,
that for Bryn, except she's a journalist who's going through this scandal and has like
yeah.
her career and reputation are on the line and she has to come back to town. And So I just used a lot of the things that I didn't want to waste,
Mm.
including Cole and Layla, because Cole and Layla then became the side characters for Bryn and Sebastian. They were the side characters for Wes and Addie
Oh,
when I originally wrote that.
ah,
So, but it was somewhere as I was writing Bryn and Sebastian, I started to realize, if I play my cards right, I might get them all. Um,
oh, I love it.
I thought, okay, there's no guarantee. I'm not contracted for a series. There's no guarantee they'll want it. But if
Mm,
I can make these characters in this town compelling enough,
mhm.
um, who knows what'll happen. So wrote Brennan Sebastian, dropped little hints about Wes and Addie. They're just, mentioned.
Easter
Um,
eggs. We love a good Easter egg. We love it.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Love it.
And then wrote Cole and Layla, which by the time I wrote Brennan Sebastian, I was like, oh yeah, Cole and Layla have to have their own story. So I wrote their story, dropping little nuggets about Wes and Addie.
Fun.
And so by the time I reached the end of those two books, readers thankfully were saying, when do we get Wes and Addie's story?
Oh, I love
And
it.
here we are, July 2025. We get Wes and Addie's story finally.
Oh,
So
perfect, perfect. I was looking online. I didn't know if you had a cover reveal. Do you happen to know if there's a cover reveal coming, or what can you tell us?
it's coming very soon. I have the cover. I have seen the cover. It's done by the same amazing artist who has done the first two. It's very
Yeah,
much
love,
on brand.
love
It's
these.
amazing. I think if people subscribe to my newsletter, it'll be going out in my newsletter no later than next month, maybe
Oh,
sooner.
perfect. In my description box for this conversation, I'll call it.
Hmm.
I have your website, and attached to the website, they can find the ways to connect to your newsletter, right? Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. Yes.
Great, great. Oh, I love it. And I did your Instagram. While we're on topic, is there any other place where you would like this audience to know that they can find you?
Hmm. One of my favorite things is I have a text number. People can text
I
me.
saw that. I saw that. And you're like, it's really me.
It's really
Do
me.
I was dying to ask you this. Do people text you very frequently?
Oh, there are probably 75 to 100 regulars.
Stop.
Yeah, and that's not counting, I mean, we've got several hundred who are part of it total, but there are probably 50 to 75 people that, I mean, we just check in with each other. It becomes a friendship, and
I
I love it's my favorite thing, and sometimes I'm really bad about responding.
Well, you'll
So it may
slide.
take me a while, but
Sure.
I always
That's
will.
understandable.
I always will eventually. But
Oh,
yeah, I get people, I mean, everything from will just say hi or it's oh my goodness, you've got mail was on TV today and I thought of you, which is one of the nicest texts I ever get. So things like that. Yeah, it's my favorite. So people can text me for sure.
I love that. I think that was when I saw that initially, I was like blown away. And when you said, yes, it's really me, because I
It's
was
really
asking
me.
a question in my mind. I love that. I love that. So let's talk about what is a day in the life of an author like?
Hmm. Um
Probably more fun
most
than a day in the life of a banker, right?
yeah, you're right. Most days, my life doesn't look probably very authorish, honestly.
Oh,
I mean, I am a full-time author, but I also have another full-time job.
good heavens.
I yeah, I'm on the leadership staff of a church here in our town,
Oh my
and
goodness.
so I do that full-time as well. And so, I'm really such like I wish I was one of those people who gets up early and writes for an hour before work, and
Sure.
I I need a big stretch. Like, I need to dive all the way in.
Mhm.
So sometimes that hour or whatever will be used for replying to the texts or getting my newsletter ready or whatever. So there's a little few I grab minutes of that here and there every day.
Mhm.
Um, but then my writing days, I have a couple days a week that I write all day.
Wow.
Um, and that's the full time, it's like 9 to 5 job, although realistically those days are 9 to 9
Oh,
sometimes if I'm on deadline, it's
wow, wow.
but so the day in the life of an author really just looks like just trying to get it all done.
Mm.
And it's a weird thing. And I think a lot of authors struggle with this from people I've talked to and everything. It's a weird thing when your hobby shifts into a job.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I think there's always a little bit of I won't say always, but it's hard to break that. I don't want to say guilt. It's not a guilt, but it's a mind shift
Mm.
of I've got to do this because you've been doing it for so long, cramming it in when you have time, waiting till everybody goes to sleep because you don't want to bother them. You don't want to. This feels indulgent to go sit and write your little stories.
Right.
And it's all important, but it's when it's a hobby, it feels different. And then suddenly it's like, no, I'm legally obligated to turn in a book at such and such time. And yet I still feel like, oh, but I'll wait till after dinner. I don't want to. So so all that to say, I still struggle with it, and it's a hard thing, and I wish I had more consistency than I do. But at the same time, it tends to get done. So
You're making it work.
I am making it work.
That's fantastic. I love it. Now, do the people at the church where you work, do they know that you're a published author?
Oh yeah,
Oh, I
they're
love it.
my hype team so much of the time. They're just actually I was so when I quit the bank, I wrote what became my first traditionally published book, which was The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck.
Oh, great.
Um
We'll talk about that too.
uh, yeah. So I wrote that in the summer that I after I quit my job, and then I started at the church that same summer.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so the getting a contract and all of that has happened in the last 10 plus ish years that I've been on staff at the church. So they've been there every step of the way. I have the most supportive team that I work with. It's amazing.
Wonderful. That is just wonderful. I love that. Christina has another great question. How do you choose your covers?
I have this much say in that. Um, and yet they have done an amazing job and I have no complaints.
Hmm.
The way it has worked with I get a document at the beginning, like when I'm still usually working on the first draft to turn in. Um, I get a document where it's my opportunity to say, this is important to the story. Like for instance, with the Bryn and Sebastian cover. So I was able to say, it'd be really great if maybe Murrow, the dog, was on the cover. And we definitely need some mountains and, they drink a lot of coffee, various
Yeah.
things that I can talk about that then get factored in. But then they take all of that, they take what they know of the story, what I know of the story, which may or may not change, usually will change from that point. Um, and then they go to the artist, they get a version, and then it comes back to me after they've already like it may go through a couple drafts before I ever see it. And
Mm.
then I have the opportunity, like the first version of the Bren and Sebastian Hate Each Other cover was in this beautiful like mountain meadow in the spring, and she was wearing, short sleeves and all this, and I'm like, the entire story is literally like a week in January or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm like, I'm sorry, this must be in winter. It must be in winter. So, so sometimes there's things like that. But
Oh, no.
thankfully they listen. Oh, and there were these trees that I was like, I don't know what those trees are, but you will not find them at 9,000 feet of elevation. Uh, so it's really just, but I also get to send pictures of like
Yeah.
the town in the background there
Oh,
is so much like a picture of a place called Creed, Colorado, a real town named Creed, that
I love it.
it's the colors are like that. It looks like that. And so anyway, all that to say, I get to throw in the ideas and then they make it happen. And at the end of the day, it's their call, not mine. My publisher's call, but never once have they moved forward with anything that I wasn't thrilled with. And so it's really just a collaboration, and we make it happen all for the um, supporting and for the best of the story that we want to put out there.
I love it. I love it. How fun. How fun. Here's another great question. Now that you're writing professionally, do you have any time to read anymore?
Wow, that's a good question too. I do. I have the great privilege of getting to endorse other authors' books.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so I do spend a lot of time reading. That is part of the job.
Mm,
So, as far as just pleasure reading for my own, it is less than it used to be, certainly. But I usually have an audiobook going in the car.
nice.
I definitely have a couple books that I'll read a couple pages at a time. It's so not as much as I would like, but you find time for the things that matter, and reading matters.
Yes. Oh, this is so true. And that does it give you any inspiration sometimes hearing other stories that give you, I don't know, like a jump off a catalyst to something
Mm.
else?
Sometimes, yeah. Like actually, now when I'm reading other writers' books, I mean, well, they're all other writers' books. When I'm reading for endorsement, I always have to I have to shut that part of my brain off.
Oh.
I just personally, I have to, because I'm like,
Mm,
I need to be focused on their work. I have a job to do here. Um, so it is the pleasure reading where sometimes the inspiration happens. And most recently, that actually happened. Strangely enough, I was listening to um, the audiobook. It's called Miracle and Wonder Conversations with Paul Simon.
oh my goodness.
So
Neat.
a memoir,
Yeah.
but so much more. Is more like it was just incredible, and with his music, and I went through a whole slog of celebrity memoir because I was feeling that. That
Yeah.
actually really inspired my next book that I can't talk about yet. Not Wes and Addie, the one after that. Um,
Oh boy. Oh boy.
yeah. So sometimes it is, I don't usually find like, oh, that's a great story idea. I want to do my take on that. Like that doesn't tend to happen. It hasn't happened to me, but
Mm.
it is like literally the music of Paul Simon inspired a story idea.
Oh.
So you just never know where you'll find it or the inspiration.
Mhm, I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is great too. This has not been addressed, by the way. Do you use actors, models, athletes, singers, whomever to help you visualize what your characters are going to look like? That's a fun question. I've never heard this one before. This is great. Oh, look at this vision board we've got going.
Yes, I do, is the answer to this question.
Is that Ryan
Th-
Gosling I
yeah,
there?
this is my Wes and Addie. So we've got Ryan Gosling and Aubrey Plaza as Wes and Addie. We have this is Cole and Layla. So we've got Elizabeth Olsen and Oscar Isaac. We've got Jennifer Garner and Paul Rudd as Bren and Seb. We have Murrow the dog. Like this is my Adelaide Springs board.
I
Um,
love it.
every character from Adelaide Springs is over here. So yes, I actually it's one of the first things I do. And I know every writer's different about this, but I'm such a movie person and always have been
Mm,
such a movie person
yeah.
that from the beginning, when I start writing, when I have a story idea, there are two things I do right off the bat. Number one is figure out the character inspiration. And it's not just, oh, this is how this guy looks. It's like, no, Sebastian Sudworth is Paul Rudd. It's like if I haven't seen Paul Rudd do it, Sebastian doesn't do it either, probably. No, that makes it sound like I just steal everything from Paul Rudd. It's not that.
We get it. We get it.
But,
Yeah.
it's like so then as I'm writing him, and obviously it is all then just fueling together, but as I write that character, I see those mannerisms that I'm familiar with, and that it makes them come
Mhm.
alive to me faster.
Sure.
So there's that, and the second thing I always do is a playlist of music, and I it's that music becomes almost my cheat sheet to get in the mood to
Sure.
write this story.
I love it.
Um, so it's always, yeah, those two things happen first, and then they are added to and built upon. But yeah, so yeah, I always
So
I
neat.
always use actors.
That is super neat. I love that. Okay, so this banner is not perfect because we've addressed some of this already. But time of day, you mentioned that part of your muse, if you will, is music, the
Mhm.
pictures. What else do you do? I mean, in terms of, is there a place you love to write? Do you prefer to write by hand, or are you typing? Are you dictating? Like, what's your go-to?
I'm I'm always typing. I'm always I'm a I edit as I go pretty much.
Oh,
So I'm always self-editing. So by the time I reach the end of my first draft, that's probably what I'm turning in. Like
wow.
there and then this is not that's not to say it's good all the time, mind you. Seriously. I've turned in some really bad first drafts. Um but I mostly because, like, by the time like, I usually have no time left, and it's my
Mhm.
deadline, and it's like, "Alright, here it is."
Yeah,
Because I'm not a plotter at all, I'm a total pantser. So I don't know where it's going till I get there.
sure,
And
sure.
so, so all that to say, I'm typing because I so much respect for the people who do it by hand and all of that, but it's like, I need to be able to easily cut and paste and move things around all the time.
Yeah.
I'm usually sitting right here, except over a little bit, like in front of my big screen right there. And this room is, I mean, there's pop culture everywhere. There's, magazine covers. There's movie posters over here. There are
Fun.
that's nothing but books and Funkos, and
Oh,
it's
I
all
love
that entire wall.
yeah.
It's just, so really it's I fall into, like, my little rom-com rabbit hole here in my little office at home, and it all happens right here.
I think we all need a rom-com rabbit hole. It sounds like you just have, like, this little fun space that just brings you joy, and then it just comes out on the computer.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
pretty
it.
much it. That's pretty much it. I mean, seriously, it's like, I can show you a little more of, like, there's my Paul
Oh,
Rudd
there's
Sexiest
Paul
Man Alive.
Rudd.
There's my Entertainment Weekly Best Friends Wedding Reunion cover. I mean, and it goes
Oh,
all the way, that is it, these are the things that make me happy, that evoke um, emotions that I so associate with why I love rom-coms and different things. I have a
yeah.
huge Julia Roberts and George Clooney poster to my left.
Oh,
It's
fun.
constant. It is my rom-com rabbit hole. No,
I love
that's what it is.
Okay, so now I have to ask,
Mhm.
what are your you kind of mentioned several. You've got mail. I know you talked about, like, is it Nancy Meyers? I always get
Nancy
Nora Ephron
Meyers.
and Nora confused.
Mhm.
Um, what are your favorites, and or when you're not feeling your best, or, like, what's your go-to comfort watch? I mean, we gotta know. I think we need to know at this point.
Yeah, 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 I'd say so.
Yeah.
Well, You've Got Mail is definitely always number 1. I
Oh.
I would say anything by Nora Ephron.
Mm,
So that includes When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle.
yes.
Um, Delia Ephron actually endorsed Cole and Layla. Delia co-wrote You've Got Mail with her sister Nora.
What?
Yeah,
I
like,
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh! Was that,
Like,
like, one of your best favorite Oh my gosh, that did not stick out to me. How did I miss that? I love that. Now, was
uh,
that one of your highest, most exciting moments as an
it
author?
was. I can't
Oh,
even. I mean,
oh,
I'd been trying to kind of, connect with her for years. And then it finally happened. And and I literally, I can't make this up. I was sitting in New York with my sister at Katz's Deli, where the famous When Harry Met Sally scene happens.
yes.
Um, I was literally sitting there when I got Delia Ephron's endorsement on my book. And I was like, I'm in rom-com heaven. I have died and gone to rom-com heaven. It was just the most beautiful thing ever.
Oh,
I still haven't gotten over it. I have not gotten over it.
oh my gosh, I'm so glad we got that story. Oh, that's
Yeah, it
that
was amazing.
that is
So
amazing.
yeah, the Efrons, always and forever. I would say my other non-Efron ones that stand out most are While You Were Sleeping, Return to Me, 2 Weeks Notice, which is I think underappreciated, but Hugh Grant, Sandra Bullock, it's one of my favorites.
Oh, yes, yes, I know that one. Yes,
Love
yes,
that
yes,
movie. So
yes.
yeah, again, just any of those, like, 90s into early 2000s. That's my comfort spot right there.
Yes. Oh, I know exactly. Yep, that's me too. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. So, who is your I can tell that you, are fond of Paul Rudd.
Little bit, little bit.
A bit, just a tad, just a tad. Um, yeah, my husband was looking at Ghostbusters the other day, like one of the newer movies. I'm like, "Wait, is that Paul Rudd he's in Ghostbusters now? Like, what's going on?"
I know, which I
Oh.
haven't seen the new Ghostbusters, and it's mostly because I'm afraid I'm gonna hate it.
Oh, sure.
And
No, I
I'm just
understand.
like,
I haven't seen it, but, yeah.
Paul needs to stay pure in my heart and mind. So I'm like, I'm not sure I'm gonna go there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to highlight this comment. This is so hilarious. And this is did you see this with you and your sister in Katz's Deli? And your sister said, "I'll have what
I'll
you're
have what you
having." Namely Delia's endorsement. That
Delia's
is
endorsement.
hilarious.
That's amazing.
That's
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
that's awesome.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
Oh,
Wow.
golly.
So Paul Rudd, we know we love him as a movie star. In
Yes.
the characters that you've written, who would you say is your favorite hero? Or is
Well,
that too hard?
no, it's actually not too hard. It just
Oh,
there are two that it alternates a little bit depending on my mood.
okay.
Um, and just a couple days ago, I actually answered this question in a different chat, and it was I said Cole Kimball from Cole and Layla, and he
Mhm.
was that day, and I do love him. I
It
do
was
love
that
him.
day.
He was that day. And I do
Sure.
love him so, so, so much. But most days, and today is one of those days, forced to choose, I go with Henry Blumenthal from The Do-Over. Um,
Oh!
yeah, Henry is I refer to him as Sexy Ken Burns. Uh, because he's the up and coming documentarian taking over the world, but
Yeah.
he's hot, and and he's such a good guy, and he's rugged, but he's also sensitive, and he's
Ooh,
artistic, but he's
yeah.
tough. And yeah, I love Henry. I love Henry a lot.
Tell us a little bit more about the do-over.
Sure. So it's the story of a woman named McKenna Keaton, who is a top lawyer and top attorney in New York City. She has just been climbing the ladder. She's called into the executive boardroom one day, and she's convinced that she's about to be named senior partner, which
Ooh,
it's time. Like it's the next step.
yeah.
And instead, she's informed that she's being put on unpaid leave while they investigate her for embezzlement.
My goodness.
Um,
Oh my
so, which is a crime she would never commit. So while the investigation's carrying on, she can't really afford to stay in her Upper West Side apartment. She has to sublet it for a while and go back home to Durham, North Carolina, and stay with her parents and her sisters, and basically not let on because she can't stand the embarrassment of what's happening to her. So
Mm,
it's, pretending she's just there on vacation and all these things, which is crazy because she hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years and no one's seen her, and all this stuff. So it's like, yeah. And meanwhile, Henry was her high school friendly rival for
oh,
valedictorian and all these different things. And he's kind of become Durham's favorite son, as he's, because he is rising in fame as the documentarian, but he's also doing so much good for the town of Durham and all of this. And
yeah.
yeah, so they find themselves in Durham together, and we take off from there.
I love it. I love North Carolina too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a fun.
It's a beautiful state.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Tell us also about I wanna hear more okay, I don't know that you mentioned the name of the title, but you mentioned the book that came out in May of 2020 about 2 chefs. I'm guessing this is
That's
it.
that's the one.
I wanna hear about this one. I wanna hear about
Yeah. Golly, I do. I love that story. It's one of my favorites, honestly, that I've written. So
Oh, I love it.
it's Hadley Beckett and Max Kavanaugh, who are two rival chefs on a Food Network type channel.
Right.
Who I've always kind of described them as kind of like Pioneer Woman and Gordon Ramsay.
Ooh, oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. Love it.
So very different styles. He's the gourmet,
Yes.
she's the sassy Southern dessert chef, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so, very much, yeah, but they have this kind of explosive chemistry thing that happens that, I mean, she can't stand him, and he has this major meltdown on the air, and they have this big, big blow up, which of
Mm.
course the network then sees as ratings gold, and so they force them into a show together,
Oh,
and
boy.
then there we go.
Ah. Oh my gosh, so fun, so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, so we've talked about your favorite hero. What would you say is your favorite heroine, or who would you say is your favorite heroine
Mm.
you've written?
Mm-mm-mm. Um, that one I find tougher, and I'll give an answer to it, but I do think the reason it's tougher for me is I write my heroines in first person and my heroes in third person.
Tell us about that. Why do you do
Well
that?
well, because for one thing, I rarely, this is no disrespect to any author who does it, and I'm sure I just haven't read the good ones. Um, but I struggle with men in first person a lot of times because as women, a lot of times writing our romances, we want, um, well, to be in first person, it's like we need them to be laying out their heart for the reader and telling us everything we need to know. And typically that is not how men operate.
Mm.
So I think it's a very tricky thing to do well. I joke, or, there are those who certainly can do it well. I don't feel like I would be able to do it well. Um, so to me, by being able to put them in third person to where someone else has complete insight into everything that they are feeling, and the narrator, as it were, can tell us all this stuff and we get the whole heart, but they're not volunteering the information.
Right.
Our women, meanwhile, I like to write, the women as like they're our friends sitting down for coffee telling us the whole story, and they're going to tell us all the details.
I love that.
So
Love that.
so that's kind of become my thing. So I think with the women, it's like they are so personal to me because I am so in their minds.
Sure.
Um, so even like, Bryn Cornell from Bryn and Sebastian Hate Each Other is probably my least likable heroine I've ever written, and I mean, I got so many comments about how
Really?
awful and unlikable she is,
You're
which
kidding.
yeah. Yeah, which I always would say, well, number 1,
Okay.
yeah, that's the point. Uh, yeah, she's not very likable, she messed up big time, she's got a long way to go, that's the point
Right.
of the story.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
but at the exact same time, it's like, I knew who she really was and what the pain that she had experienced that was causing these things. So I, of course,
Mhm.
was a sympathetic teller of her story.
Sure.
So, they all have that sort of thing. Now, having said all of that, I think my favorite heroine is actually Sarah Hollenbeck from my first romantic comedy, The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck.
Really?
Um, yeah, she's a so this was my first, so it's my first romantic comedy. It was a Christian romance. She is she's recently divorced. She was basically a trophy wife of this Fortune 500 CEO who suddenly doesn't know what her life is when he cheats on her and
My.
their marriage ends. And so she starts just trying to throw herself into various things. And she ends up writing these very, very, very steamy romances that take off big time. And she becomes a, like millionaire writer of these steamy romances.
Oh
And
my.
then she actually becomes a Christian and decides she doesn't want to do that anymore and falls in love with her pastor. So she's a hot mess, and I love her so much. She
Oh!
she's and I think the fact that I wrote that story, I had no real expectation of publishing. Like I still didn't. I was just writing for fun, so I was telling the stories that were in my head and needed to be told,
Yeah.
and it was so fun. And I had this woman. I mean, this woman says everything. Like she thinks it, and then it is on the page. It's just absurd.
Right.
And I love her so much. I mean, still, so that book came out in 2017, and I think she is my, yeah, she's my standard bearer still of she's so authentic, she's so real,
Yeah.
she's so vulnerable, and, but she's also so sassy and so smart alecky, and I mean, I love her to pieces, so yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. How fun. Here's another great question. Sounds like you do a lot of research. Do you have a favorite topic or place that you've researched?
That's a great question.
Mm.
Um, I actually do shockingly little research, truth be told. I just make stuff up. Um, I either make it up or it's just already jammed in there somewhere and it comes out, like
Yeah,
with all the because I do so many like movie references and TV references and all that. And
for
it's like,
sure.
I wish I did a lot of research, but no, it's just there. It's wasting brain space. Um, except what I actually do probably the most research on is where these characters live. And
Oh, okay.
I sometimes I take trips if I can. If not, I'm certainly doing
That's fun.
deep dives into stuff online. As far as my favorite place that I've researched, I mean, I keep writing stories in New York so that I have excuses to keep going to New York. I love New York so much.
That's
So yeah, I mean that's the fave for sure.
this follow-up question's perfect. What's your favorite thing that you just made up? Told you
um
they were gonna have great questions.
that's so good. That is so good. Um Well, here's what I love so much is, like, both in Hadley Beckett's Next Dish and, Brent and Sebastian Hate Each Other, there's a lot that and Wooing Katie McCaffrey also. There's a lot they all happen in television studios to varying degrees. And, I've gotten the nicest compliments and reviews of, "Oh my goodness, I never knew that that's how it worked, and this is so great, and did you go and shadow someone on the set?" And I love that. That's just I'm like, well, that's how they do it, like, on the shows about TV, so I just took that and was like, "Yeah, that sounds good," and then I'll just make this up and that I don't know what I'm talking about, I did no research.
I'd
So,
be like if I tried to do like an ER type, like a medical. Oh no.
yeah,
That would
yeah,
be based
I'm
on
like, "Oh my gosh," totally, it's like, "Yeah, thank you, that is so sweet of you to compliment me in that way, and I don't deserve it, I just made it up, I don't know. Sounds good to me, so glad it sounds
Oh
good to
my
you too."
gosh. Oh, that's great. And that's the whole point, right?
Exactly,
So tell us
exactly.
actually, you mentioned Wooey Katie McCaffrey. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, that one is the story of a couple who's actually been together for 4 years, Katie McCaffrey and Will Whitaker, and, they work at a sports network,
Oh,
together. He's like a sports researcher, and she's, an accountant, but they're surrounded by, all the on-air people, like the former NBA stars and former NFL stars who are on air, and those are their friends and all this stuff. And so basically, after 4 years, they break up in horrendous fashion.
ooh.
And basically, the book is Will trying to win her back with the help of his former professional athlete friend group, basically copying all the grand romantic gestures from her favorite movies to try to win her back.
How much fun! Now, in these movies, are they I'm guessing they're real movies looking at the
Oh,
cover.
yeah.
Like, is that Say Anything and Sleepless in Seattle? And
Those
is
are daisies because daisies are the friendliest flower from You've Got Mail. Yeah, he does them all. Big Fish, he fills her office with daffodils like in Big Fish. I can't even remember them
is
all.
the ring box Pretty Woman? Is that Pretty Woman?
There
Or
is a yes, that's also a tie-in to a real, like, part of their story, but there is a Pretty Woman reference in
Oh,
that. Yes.
I love
So
I love this. Please tell me there's a mad dash to the airport. Yes, we gotta have that.
Yes.
Tell
Well, okay. That's a two-part answer. Number one, not exactly, but there's a mad dash to the Empire State Building.
Oh boy, I'll take it. I'll take
Yep.
it. I
And
love it.
then there is a mad dash to the airport in another book I wrote, Plot Twist, because, you know, I
Oh!
I'm all about the mad dash to the airport still, and the whole needing to buy a ticket just to get through security, and that happens in Plot Twist. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, you know what? Hey, you just opened the door. Let's talk about plot twist. This is great.
Okay. Well,
This
Plot Twist is another book that I wrote. I wrote this one about 10 years ago also. I was really productive in the early days when I had no contracts and just wrote for fun. And it's gotten harder since, but
I'm sure.
yeah.
Oh,
But I wrote this story, and then it sat in the drawer for a very long time. But it's the story of Olivia Ross, who goes into a coffee house in LA, and she's an aspiring screenwriter, but she writes greeting cards professionally. But she's going there to work on her screenplay, has this meet cute of sorts with this dashing wannabe actor who's on his way to an audition. This big thing happens to where it's very chaotic and all these things all of a sudden. But as he's dashing off, they agree to meet back at that same coffee house in 10 years, at which time she would have a script for him to star in, and he would be a big star and he would star in it. And the idea being, look, if nothing else, we will know that there's someone out there who's rooting for us and believing in us while we're both struggling to achieve our dreams.
oh,
And so they agree to meet back. So that's February 4th, 2003. The entire book, each chapter is February 4th of the following year until we get to February 4th, 2013.
I love it. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I love
that
it.
was a
So
fun
much
one.
fun.
That was
Oh,
a really fun one.
that's so much fun. Speaking of other great, what would you like tropes, if you will, of rom-coms? We have to know also, is there a changing clothes montage? Those are also my favorite. Yeah, I'm glad you brought
Those,
that up.
that's fabulous. There's kind of one of those in Woo and Katie McCaffrey. There is a
Oh,
little
yeah?
bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of of sorts. Yeah, we'll go with it. I think it would count. Yeah.
That's so fun. That's just so fun. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. So, okay, I don't think we've specifically mentioned this, but what's your favorite book for you that you've written, and or what do you think has resonated the most with your readers? Like, what do you hear about and you're just I don't know if you can answer that, but
Ooh,
I thought I'd ask at least.
that's a great question.
Sure.
Well, I would say my favorite book that I've written for me personally is Cole and Wheeler, Just Friends. Um,
Mm.
I
Oh.
They're so special to me, and I just had the most fun with them and
Mm.
their friendship and watching them. Yeah, so that one, yeah.
Yeah.
As far as what has resonated most with my readers,
I realize that the ones
that's
that have been around longer, you've had more time to interact
that's
on them. So I know that may not be a fair question. So
yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's funny because I always feel like, um, okay, I think I do know the answer to this actually, because I always
Ooh,
feel like with Hadley Beckett's Next Dish,
ooh,
again, because it came out at the beginning of the pandemic and all these different things, um, it
yeah.
always, it's my worst selling. I didn't get to do any book events to promote it.
Sure. Yeah.
I lost my contract with my previous publisher at the end of that one because it just didn't sell.
Oh, man.
Nothing was selling, but still, I
Right,
get it.
right. Yeah.
And so I feel that way about it on one hand, but on the other hand, I can't tell you the number of people who have reached out to me saying they did find it during the pandemic and it was a source of happiness every day. And
That's so important.
yeah, and I don't know if that's um I don't know. Those have probably meant the most to me of what I've heard from readers. So I'll go with that one.
I love it. I love it. So do you have any advice for any would-be authors in the crowd? We always
Mhm.
I it's amazing how many authors or people who are working on publishing who I get to interact with on a regular basis, and I'm sure either they're listening right now or they're gonna be joining us later. But yeah, do you have anything to share that would be helpful?
I do. I mean, I don't know if it'll be helpful or not. Remains to be seen. But but I'll share it. Um, two things, I think. Number one, you got to start writing.
Oh.
And it's shocking to me how many people come up to me who say they have a great idea for a book, or they've always thought about writing a book someday,
Mm,
or whatever the case may be. And I get that. It's hard to start. It's really hard to start.
yeah.
Um, but you got to start writing. Until you start writing, it's why are we even having this conversation?
Mm,
So that's number one. Number two is that if you start writing and you really want to make a go of it, you have to find a way to somehow simultaneously stay so true to yourself and so vulnerable for your characters and so committed to who you are and what you want to be on the page, while at the exact same time developing a really thick skin.
oh.
And I think that's, I think sometimes people give up because of the thick skin part, or they compromise because they haven't cemented who they are. And you have to find a way to do both of those things, because, yeah, it is a business of rejection, and it is a business of more no's than yeses,
Mm,
especially if you want to go the traditionally publishing route.
yeah.
But like, okay, you figure out who you are, and then be prepared to listen to the critique, change where you can. Don't be so, don't assume that you know it all, because you don't. None of us do.
Right.
There's always someone out there who has already learned a lesson that would really be helpful for us to learn. And
Mm,
if they're willing to teach it, please listen to it. So yeah, definitely always be learning and growing, but at the same time, don't compromise. And yeah, if you can do those two things, you might be able to make a go of it.
that's really profound. That is really
Thanks.
profound. Well said.
Thank you.
So we've heard a little bit about Wes and Addie coming out. You said July
July.
of
Mhm.
2025.
Yes.
Another book in the wings that we can't talk about yet, but have we know we're excited already.
Yes. Yes.
What else
I
is on
sure
the
am.
horizon for you? Are there events that you're planning on attending? Anything live that you're hoping that we can join you for? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's coming up?
Yeah. Let's see. I have an event in Farmington, New Mexico. So if anybody listening happens to be in Farmington, New Mexico, coming up on October 22nd. But
Okay.
other than that, I'm really wanting to, I need to get, I have a book club. We don't read books.
Oh.
Uh, if that's what you're expecting, no. But I have we've met on Facebook for years, and I do lives monthly with that, but I've been really bad at that. So,
Okay.
but I hope to get that going. But really, I just say connect with me, all that stuff. I will say, and I can say really nothing other than there is talk of a project that may or may not someday, if all the stars were to align and everything worked out, involve some film.
Oh. Oh,
That's,
oh my
we'll
gosh, that's
see.
so exciting. That's so
So yeah,
exciting.
so there's always stuff. There's always
Yeah,
stuff. And I would say just, yeah, I'd love to connect and stay in touch. And so that hopefully, as soon as I know stuff, I'll make sure everybody else knows it too.
sure. So I have your Instagram, I have your website, your Facebook. It sounds like I need to get that to everybody as well. What is your
Yeah.
Facebook? Is it just
It's
what
the
is it?
See Bethany Wright also. So it's See Bethany Wright. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, excited. And where else? There anywhere else that we should look for you?
I think that about does it. Those are the ones where I'm somewhat regular.
Okay.
I may pop up other places. And the texting. Don't forget the texting. I gotta do that. So
I just love that. I love that so much. Well, is there anything that I'm sure I mean, I could talk to you all day. So I
oh,
guess if
you're a
there's anything
delight.
I
I
left
could
out,
talk
I
to you all
mean,
day.
this was just so much fun. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
I really feel like we covered it very well. I mean, I'm amazed how much I think we talked about every book I've ever written, which I don't know if I've ever done an interview where I've talked about every book I've written. This was amazing.
I was so excited when I saw all these. I was like, "Oh, I hope we get to talk about all these." I'm thrilled. I'm
Great.
thrilled.
That
Yeah.
was so fun.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I would definitely just as far as, the Adelaide Springs stories, I'd encourage people to dive into those. I think
Yes.
that, um, they are standalones. So again, I didn't know that it was gonna, have more stories in this town when it started. So they all are designed to be standalone. Having said that, I think start with Bryn and Sebastian hate each other and really get to know these characters from the
Yeah.
get-go.
Mhm.
So I would just encourage, dive into that and then meet Cole and Layla and then be ready for Wes and Addie coming next year because it's
Oh!
it's gonna be a fun one, I think.
So exciting. So exciting. I'm just oh my gosh, it's just so good. I hadn't had a chance. I read Cole and Layla, really enjoyed it. I wanted to read Bryn and Sebastian, then I had a bunch of other things I had to do at the same time. So I'm excited to start at the beginning before
Yay.
Wes and Addie come out next summer. We all have plenty
Yay.
of time to get ourselves done with those 2. So
Plenty of time. Plenty of time. No excuses.
well, I just want to thank you so much for coming by. This has been
Thank
so
you.
lovely, and you're welcome back anytime.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you're an absolute delight. Like I said, I
You
could chat with you all day. So
too.
thanks so much for having me. It's been a
Yeah.
blast.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who joined us today. This was lovely. And thank you to those who are watching later. Oh, we got a thanks. Bye bye.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you next time.
Bye.